Today we shall be talking about Belle Tones, and I guess that's the first thing we should talk about. Did you know her last name's Tones? It was theorised pretty early on that this was the case when this wanted poster for an Alexa Tones was noticed. And as I've said before, knowing Minbron's penchant for pun names, it wasn't hard to put two and two together, Belle, Tones. Anyway, we more recently had a pseudo-confirmation in the form of a mysterious note that Belle receives after her fight with Ursula signed AT, most likely Alexa Tones. That and Sir Towan telling Belle not to end up like her mother, the implication being that she's a criminal, and yeah, that's a pretty robust list of crimes there, Alexa. It all adds up pretty neatly. So we have a last name for Belle, that's cool. What else do we know about her? Well, she's a skilled acrobat and guitarist, having worked in the circus for presumably quite a while, before recently having a change of heart, otherwise known as hopping on board the Depressi Expressi. And then you know the rest of it, Bonnie comes along to try and pull her out of it by kidnapping their mutual childhood friend Clyde because, well, she has her own issues. But if you played to the end of the core story, which I certainly hope you did if you're watching obscure lore videos about the thing, you might have bumped into this character, Fionn. Fionn has a very interesting side quest. See, she's lived on the moon her entire life and wants to explore the world below, which thanks to Belle and Vivian reactivating the portal, she now can. And so when you come back to this area after speaking to her, she's no longer there, having departed to explore all the exciting things she can find. She uses the word exciting a lot. Now, Gazan, the race that Fionn is part of, have this ability to see malice, which, to put it simply, is a kind of magical force generated inside of a person when they hold hate in their heart. This force starts as like a seed, and if allowed to go unchecked, it'll take root and has the potential to curse the people that the hate is directed at, and even form a creature made of pure malice called a spite. I'll make another video going into detail about malice soon, but for now that's basically what it is. And if someone builds up too much malice within themselves, it blooms, transforming the person holding it into something called a malevolent. The reason I'm going into all of this is because it seems like Belle's depression might just be a symptom of a much more serious malady. At the very end of Fionn's side quest, she arrives at Belle's house and has this to say. Is this where you live? Yeah, why? It's seeped in malice. So yeah, it turns out Belle has a seed of malice inside of her that by all accounts should have bloomed by now. I have a theory as to why it hasn't, but again, it's sort of its own topic, so I'll save it for its own video. I promise I'll stop saying that at some point. But the important thing is, Belle doesn't seem to know about it until Fionn tells her, which is weird, right? You would think something like holding malice in your heart would require conscious effort. However, in a weirdly contradicting feeling way, Belle then suddenly becomes really skittish about the whole thing, telling Fionn to just leave her alone. I don't know about you, but if a person with magic eyes came up to me and told me that I have an evilness bomb inside me, I'd probably press them for more info. It's as if she's trying to avoid remembering something. In the song that plays during your final battle with the Graven, there is a very interesting line. Like lightning in the sky, another friend that I have lost, another spark to stoke the fires of the heart. Obviously talking about Chime there, as at the time he's presumed dead by all the characters in the scene, but another? Who was the first? When talking to Emma, Belle says it's always just been Bonnie, Clyde and herself, weirdly not mentioning Chime there, but I think that's just because he kind of comes packaged with Belle by default. But there's no mention of anyone else, and neither Bonnie or Clyde ever mention a previous member of their little group, so what's going on here? Who is Belle's lost friend, and what happened to them? Perhaps something in her very early childhood, when she was still with Alexa. She had this friend, something happened to them, maybe it was Alexa's fault, maybe it wasn't, but either way, she took the blame, and that's how she became a wanted criminal. At the same time, this is probably a very traumatic experience for a young child, as well as just confusing. This could be what planted the seed of malice within Belle, while also blocking it out of her memory, resulting in this weird paradox of having this hatred inside of her, but not knowing why. Alternatively, it could be that her seed already bloomed at one point, or at the very least expelled some spites or a curse upon someone else, maybe in retaliation for what happened to this lost friend, and that's what Alexa took the blame for. And look, I'm not necessarily saying that Alexa took the fall for crimes she didn't commit, I'm just trying to make all of the factors that we know of fit into a single theory. Maybe she is guilty of all of the crimes she's wanted for, maybe there's no justification for her actions even to herself. But given the few actions we've actually seen her take, the birthday gift she left for Belle, and what seems like it might be a warning in the note, I think Alexa does care about Belle, and possibly gave her up to the carnival in order to protect her in the first place. Either way, my theory is that this lost friend is someone from Belle's very early childhood, before she met Bonnie and Clyde, or maybe even Chime. This person then died, and that's when Belle's malice seed began to form. But either because of the trauma, or because she was simply so young, she can't remember any of it, but the seed is still there. And it may be influencing her actions more than she realises. I mean, there's the obvious case of Belle absolutely overflowing with malice when she thinks Chime has been killed, This is what malice looks like, by the way. Again, I'll go into it in more depth another time, but just for now, trust me, this stuff right here is malice. But a more subtle example of the malice leaking through can be seen in the end credits, where Belle throws Bonnie's locket into the hollows, which the hollows aren't really explained at any point, but from context clues it seems like some sort of cave system that spans most of the island. We don't get to know exactly what led Belle to do this, just that it was their last fight as kids and that the locket belonged to Bonnie's parents. Now, with all the talk of this dormant malice inside of Belle, it's very much starting to feel like a Chekhov's gun situation, so let's talk about where this thread might be leading us. She who seeks vengeance will release 7 ruins upon the world. The dawn will come. This is a fortune read to you by Aura in the ground floor of Lawbright's tower, and it sure looks like that's meant to represent Belle, doesn't it? But hey, maybe Belle, the person with an impossible amount of pent-up malice, isn't the one that's going to release 7 ruins upon the world. After all, it looks like there are hands grasping at her representation, so maybe it's someone who seeks vengeance against her. Whatever the case may be, I think it's pretty clear that Belle and her malice still have a larger role to play in future events. But that last part of the fortune, the dawn will come, that's not the first time this dawn thing has come up, and it seems like Belle's fate may be rather closely related to whatever it is. Join me again in the next video where I'm going to delve into the meaning behind this mysterious dawn. And it's not me, by the way, it has nothing to do with me. I don't know if anyone actually thought that it had anything to do with me, but just in case, it's just a coincidence, I don't know why.